Hello and welcome to today's lesson on math anxiety, stress, and numeracy. The age-old question from board math students is whether they'll ever use the things they learn in real life. Numeracy, how well people work with numbers and probabilities, has been found to have a significant impact on health and financial situations and outcomes. So evidently, those students will indeed need to use those things that they learned in Algebra 1. Studies have found that the reason for this impact is that people with low numeracy tend to rely more on emotions and various other biases instead of objective facts and reality when making decisions. As such, it is important that we learn and understand what and how things affect our numeracy. But before we delve any further, we need to elaborate on the concept of numeracy. There are two types of numeracy, objective and subjective. Objective numeracy can be assessed through gauging someone's performance on math problems, while subjective numeracy is how skilled and comfortable people believe themselves to be in regards to mathematics. So one could have a high objective numeracy, but a low subjective numeracy, and vice versa. We'll be exploring how numeracy is affected by stress and math anxiety. Stress and moderation is generally able to increase human performance and in excess harm it. But what effect does it have on people's abilities to crunch some numbers? And all of us out there who have dreaded the approach of a math exam know that a certain fear or aversion to mathematics can build up. But how does this math anxiety compare to stress when someone needs to do some math calculations? Several psychologists, Jennifer Tabor, Samantha Choi, Kalisa Thompson, and Pooja Sidney, published a study in December of last year exploring this topic. They wanted to know if stress and math anxiety would have a significant impact on people's numeracy. But how to test these two independent variables? Math anxiety is something built up throughout life, that's something easily induced through an exponential procedure. Stress, on the other hand, is incredibly easy to induce, but how to do so ethically? To obscure the true purpose of the experiment, our participants would first be told that they were participating in two different studies, one studying how people perceive numbers and the other about decision making. Our participants were first given a baseline survey to assess their usual level of performance. Stress would then be induced for some randomly assigned portion of the participant group and measured by giving those participants 60 seconds to prepare for an impromptu 3-minute speech. That would then be validated by the fellow participants after taking a baseline survey. Then after the minute was up, they took another survey. As for the neutral condition group, they simply needed to make a grocery list, something low stress. Fortunately for the stress participants, they were informed that they did not need to give a speech. In fact, the experimenters would then had the participants watch a clip of The Office to de-stress them. The perceived stress scale was used to help account for variations in base stress levels. Math anxiety was measured more simply. The participants were just given a survey that included a 5-point scale of math anxiety to answer. Objective and subjective numeracy itself, the dependent variable, was measured using the rash-based numeracy scale and the subjective numeracy scale, respectively. But before they can actually conduct this experiment, they needed people to experiment on. These people were drawn from a psychology participant pool, and the experiment itself was conducted twice to check for reproducibility. From this pool of participants, they discovered that stress was not actually a predictor of someone's numeracy, whether it be subjective or objective numeracy. However, those with greater math anxiety were found to have a lower subjective and objective numeracy. This held true in both the initial experiment and the second experiment conducted for replicability's sake. As it turns out, being intimidated by math is correlated with a lower ability to work with numbers and probabilities, which probably doesn't come off as too much of a surprise. Considering that high numeracy has been connected with higher health and financial outcomes, this study potentially reveals a need for a more friendly and less intimidating approach to teaching mathematics to the next generation. With such a re-evaluation to our education system, perhaps those future students will be more comfortable in using objective mathematical tools like probabilities and statistics in their everyday lives. And perhaps those future students will stop asking whether they'll ever use what they learn in class in real life. Thank you for watching and goodbye.